Hi, Nick Grovich here with you once again on a Thursday afternoon. We had Financial Fest on Saturday, and that was my first Financial Fest. I've been thinking about it for years and just never got off my duff and dialed the phone and got involved. But of course, since I have a program here, I didn't have any way to not do Financial Fest, so I did something I wanted to do, and it was really pretty interesting. It's my first one. I didn't realize how many people would come and talk to us about coins and gold. I know, a good part of the station talks about annuities and more traditional types of investments, and I know that overall, people involved in coins and gold and silver are a pretty small percentage of the overall investors out there. I think, what do they say, 3% of the United States owns gold, so that's a pretty small percentage. So I was really impressed to see what people had to say. A lot of people had a lot of interesting things that they asked me, passed on a lot of interesting things about other dealers that I didn't realize. And what else was kind of fun is I met a lot of collectors. And, unfortunately, I can't be everything to everybody. So I had a lot of collectors that said, gee, I'm looking for this coin or that coin. And, some of the coins I'll probably find for people and some I may or may not. But the problem is let's suppose you're looking for a coin that, a $500 coin that's something I make $20 or $30 or even $50 on. Well, if I have it in stock or it comes in through the door, in other words, somebody comes in and sells it to me, I can give you a pretty good deal on that coin. But if I have to go on the dealer network, now if I go on the dealer network and I find somebody who just wants to sell one, we're still doing okay. But if I have to actively go search for a coin, now I'm spending a lot of time and I'm calling a lot of different people, and now they're thinking I need the coin. So this $500 coin all of a sudden might become a $600 coin simply because I need it. So, in some cases, I like to do something for everybody, and the people who I took their list from, they're looking for things. I did that because they had coins that I'm very likely to come across, and if they're patient, I'll find them. But every now and then somebody wants something, they want it today, they want it tomorrow, and for me to go out and find it, unfortunately, sometimes I'm not the best person for that. Like I said, if I have it in stock, great. If not, you're better off to just find somebody who has one they want to get rid of. That's how you get the best price. Anyway, I got to show people. A lot of people showed up at my talk in the morning, which I was very happy about. A lot more people than what I really expected. And, I got to show people some of the things I talk about. I got to show them some of the charts, some of the PCGS 3000 that I talked about. That's their charting and their survey of coins from 1970 to the present. And I believe it made a lot more sense to people when I could actually show them what was going on. It was really interesting for me to hear what people had to tell me. Let's see if I can phrase this right. They told me things they were told by other dealers or salesmen or professionals. And one thing I heard quite often was something I talk about a lot, and that's confiscation and reporting issues. And I had more than just one or two people come up to me and say, well, so-and-so told me that if I had American Eagles, gold Eagles, that when I sold them, I would have to be reported to the IRS. And they mentioned several different names of people who told them that, which, I don't want to mention the names. It doesn't really matter. But it's absolutely false. So, I don't know if the guy is telling them that just didn't know, or if they just told them something different so they could sell them something else. I know the dealers that were telling them, no, you have to report gold Eagles. They did that because they wanted to sell the people, rare coins, which they make a heck of a lot more money on. So, if you wanted to go in and buy $10,000 worth of gold Eagles, a dealer is going to make $200, $300, $400. That's about it. But if you bought $10,000 worth of rare coins, all of a sudden they're going to make $3,000 or $4,000. So you can see where the incentive is. But I guess I find it hard to believe that somebody who calls themselves a professional is going to just sit there and lie to you about what's reportable. And even with the confiscation, the same thing. People talked about that and said, "Oh no, they told me." American Eagles will be confiscated. So it was good at the seminar because I was actually able to show people copies of the legislation where Eagles are actually, in fact, defined as a numismatic coin. So, a lot of that you can hear it, but sometimes seeing the actual legislation makes a difference. If anybody wants a copy of that, it's Public Law 99-185 from December 17th, 1985. I don't know if I'm saying that all right, but 99th Congress. Anyway, if you want a copy of that, you can call my office, and I'd be glad to send you a copy of that. This is the act that basically created the gold bullion. This is the Gold Bullion Act of 1985 that created the silver and gold eagles, and then soon after that, the gold buffaloes. They had another act that created those. That was actually tied to the presidential dollar. So you have presidential dollars and gold buffaloes being authorized in the same act. But in both of these, under Section 3, it says, all coins minted under the subsection shall be considered to be numismatic items. So, in my point of view, if the government says numismatics are not involved in confiscation, and that's what people seem to be worried about, here you have the public law right here in your hands that says, hey, these are numismatic items. I think that's a lot better than arguing with them over what's numismatic and what isn't. But anyway, some of the things I heard just kind of floored me because they were just out and out, I don't want to say lies, but mistruths. They just weren't true. Let's see, what else can I tell you? The funniest thing there too, I know at least one coin dealer came up to me and started asking me how much Maple Leafs cost. So I quoted him a price, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you're ridiculously high on that." I said, "Okay, well, what do you sell them for?" He was $10 less than me, which, on a $1,200 item, so I guess some people look at $10 as a big difference in price, but I suspect what's going to happen is he's going to go back to his clients and say, I sell them for this price, and he sells them for that price, which is a lot more, and then hope that people decide he's cheaper on everything else. And you have to be careful with that. And I've talked about that before, but even some of the internet discount brokers, and some of those guys are very, very good. But if you look at just Eagles or Maple Leafs or something like that, they're willing to make almost nothing. In fact, sometimes they're willing to lose $5 or $10 just to get your name and get you in the front door. So don't assume that you get a good deal on one coin that everything else is going to be a really good deal also. It's a good way to get yourself in trouble.
And once again, here's Nick Grovich.
Okay, I'm back with you. I was just finishing up. I'm not going to go into the whole confiscation reporting thing again, but those are the two things. As soon as you have somebody start talking to you about buying anything, I don't care if it's rare coins or gold or what it is, and they start their pitch is it's because it's safe from confiscation or you don't have to report it. That should be a red flag right there to hang up the phone or go talk to somebody else, because there's no reason to bring those things up. The only reason they bring it up is to sell you something you don't want or need. 99% of the time, that's going to be true. So, if you want information about that, that's something I've spent a lot of time on simply because I get asked about it every single week. And after several years of hearing about it, I get tired of saying the same thing over and over again. So I did write a little booklet about confiscation. I can give you all the important information you need on reporting, but just call the office, 480-553-5282. You can have a free copy of the confiscation brochure. everything in there is fact. You can go online and look up everything I have to tell you. You can look up the legislation. I give you, the legislation numbers to look up yourself, and you can verify everything I say. But there's a lot of things that happen in regards to confiscation, even in the 1970s. And you never hear about any of that from these guys. They're using that as a leverage to sell something to you. And same thing with reporting. Just because we don't report something to the government, that doesn't mean that you don't owe taxes on it. So the reporting, sometimes, I get it. We're not dumb. We know why people don't want to report it. You don't want a red flag waved in the government's face. Hey, you sold $100,000 worth of this or that. But you can take losses on it too. And I hate to tell you, but most of the people who bought coins the last 20 years are taking massive losses, not gains. And even though we don't report those, and that doesn't matter if it's rare coins or gold or silver or platinum or bars or what it is, you can take the loss on your taxes too. Now, I'm not an accountant, so go talk to your own accountant about how you do all that. But you can take a loss on these as well as a gain and get why not? If you have a loss, take the loss on your taxes. Maybe it'll help you out against other capital gains. But just because I don't report that loss or gain to the government doesn't mean you can't. In the case of a loss, they don't really care if you report it. But, if you sell $100,000 worth of gold that you paid $30,000 for, can you get away with it just because a dealer doesn't report it? Sure, I can tell you. Nobody comes in and looks at my records. Nobody says, oh, gee, look at, do you think this person made money or that person made money? We do a little audit the first of the year with an ex-IRS agent just to make sure we're in compliance with the different laws that we have to follow now under the Patriot Act. And so, he'll go through and he'll, if we didn't report something or if there's something we missed, and he'll say, oh, you got to get this guy's social security number, or this one you should have reported, or, so he'll tell us if there's something we missed. But I'm kind of talking in circles here. There's very, very little. I doubt very much if we send out a dozen or 2 dozen 1099s the first of the year. And, we're not the biggest dealer in the country, but we probably do $20 or $30 million worth. So, to have a dozen or 2 dozen 1099 forms go out, it's not really that big a deal. So, ICTA, Industry Council for Tangible Assets. You can look them up online too. And a lot of this, I believe, is on my website, AmericanFederal.com. You could go there and see a lot of this material too. ICTA came out with broker reporting, which the dealers use this to decide what we have to report and not report. I won't copy this for you, but I'll tell you what is and isn't reportable if you ask me. The reason they don't want us to copy this is all based on their meeting with the Internal Revenue and basically between them and the Internal Revenue coming up with some kind of understanding exactly what they're looking for. And naturally, they don't want us to hand this out and then they get sued because something's interpreted wrong. But the basics of it are, if you have pure gold, that's I think they call it 995 fine or better. So if you have bars that total a kilo or 25 ounces, that becomes reportable. Then things like Maple Leafs, Krugerrands, and Mexican Onzas, 25 ounces or more reportable. American Eagles, not reportable. The government just happens to give their own items a big benefit. We don't report them. They're considered numismatic when you sell them. So they give their own products a little edge in the market. Silver bars, $1,000 ounces or more becomes reportable. So if you have 10 100-ounce bars or 110 ounce bars, if it's 1,000 ounces total, that becomes reportable. Platinum, 25 ounces of bars becomes reportable. Palladium, 100 ounces in bars becomes reportable. And that's probably not everything on their list, but you can see a lot of it's tied to the purity of the metal and also to the number of ounces. And This leaves a lot of holes if you want something non-reportable, but as I said, just because it's not reportable does not mean you don't owe taxes on it. So reportable or not, you have to decide if you want to try and get away with not reporting your taxes. If that's the goal, that's a whole different thing. So anyway, overall at Financial Fest, I had a great time. I met a lot of really nice people. Got a lot of questions, and I found out that the people here in the Phoenix area are much more knowledgeable about gold, silver, and coins than a lot of the people I talked to on the phone, and that was a really nice thing to find out. That was a pleasant thing to figure out here. Now, this is a little off subject, but I always hear people talking about government conspiracies and how the government's going to get your gold and control it. We all hear about gold manipulation, silver manipulation. And I read an article this morning that and I'm going to tell you about it. Maybe you can add this together in your mind the way I did. But there's a hearing today in D.C. on whether Wall Street's ownership of commodity spurs conflicts. Duh, really? So they can own the commodities and it's not going to affect what they do as far as telling people to invest or not invest or have any... I mean, it's crazy. If you read this whole thing, Goldman Sachs, the whole article here is... this is in Bloomberg, by the way. It was published this morning. It says, Goldman spars with senators over its aluminum business. And the example they're using here... is that an example that Goldman Sachs got into the aluminum business. So, on one hand, they're taking care of your money and they're managing your stocks, and then on the other hand, they're also controlling the aluminum that they're advising you on. So it's kind of a closed circle, which, I mean, to me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it seems to me the banks are the ones I mean, I try not to get into all the conspiracy stuff, but this really got me thinking. It's really the banks we have to watch out for, not so much the government, although the government's in bed with the banks. But, I mean, how scary is it that through this whole thing, the banks have gotten more and more and more? I mean, it used to be the banks only controlled your money. Then all of a sudden, the banks could sell you stocks. Now the banks can own the commodities. I mean, what's left? They just keep getting more and more and more. And then when they mess up like they did in 2008 with the mortgages, we bail them out. So we keep building them bigger and bigger and bigger, and we give them more money. All the money we gave them is the money that they're doing all this with. This money was supposed to be used to help the economy. The money was supposed to be loaned out to people to help the economy, and instead the banks used it to buy up different companies, commodities, more banks. And it's just kind of crazy to me. We're going into a break here in a minute, but maybe I could summarize this for you. But it's talking about, it's really funny. It's talking about the aluminum industry and how Goldman Sachs bought one of the big storage facilities in Detroit, and then they came up with a scheme where they pay people to take their aluminum in and out of there to create lines to make it take longer to get your aluminum. And the wait to get your aluminum out went from 20 days to 120 days, and because of the wait to get the physical, the price went up, and guess who made money on it? And so Goldman is saying there's absolutely no correlation between how long it takes to get the aluminum as to price. So I can tell you in the gold and silver business, there's definitely a correlation in how far out delivery is. I mean, we go through that almost once a year in silver. In February, we get a shortage, and it takes 5 or 6 weeks to get it. And for immediate delivery, you end up paying $2 or $3 more an ounce. So I'll talk about this a little more in a minute.
Again, here's Nick Grovich.
Okay, I'm back with you. I'm talking about Goldman Sachs owning the commodities. I mean, what they're talking about is Carl Levin. I hope I'm saying that right. He's the Democratic senator from Michigan, I think, or senator. Yeah, he's putting pressure on the Federal Reserve to restrict Wall Street's ownership of assets such as power plants and oil tankers. And his argument really just boils down to, these are the guys that are selling you the stocks and the derivatives and all that, and now they're going to own the underlying commodity on top of it. So do you really want the guy who owns the oil tanker to be in charge of the price of oil? Do you want the guy who's going to tell you whether or not you should buy or sell aluminum to be in charge of the aluminum? Of course, Goldman Sachs says even though all that information is theirs, they don't share it with the financial side. So you're trusting a big bank to not share vital information from one part of their operation to the financial part of their operation, even though you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in potential profits there. I mean, the whole thing, it's just so ridiculous to me. This whole thing, they call it a merry-go-round. So basically, Levin says it's a merry-go-round deal that doesn't have any purpose. I mean, really, what's the purpose? You take your aluminum out and then you turn around and put it back in. What purpose does that serve? Except it makes it more expensive to store it because the warehouse is going to be busier, and it moves the price of the underlying metal because it's hard. It takes 120 days to get it out of storage. That's crazy. So. Not that I really care that much about what's going on with the aluminum, but why aren't the banks going to get involved in silver and gold? I mean, they can. This leaves it open for them to get as involved as they want in any part of the commodities market. Maybe they start buying gold mines and silver mines and platinum mines, and then start buying the refiners, and then. They can control the whole thing, and that's kind of part of it that really that's where I went with this in my mind. I started looking at this and saying, okay, in this report they're using aluminum as the metal that they have basically manipulated, and why can't it be some other metal? I mean, we all think, oh, the government's manipulating this, or central banks are manipulating something, and it's turning out it's not the government. It's not the government at all. We're giving so much power to these big banks that I think that's where the potential to bite us in the rear end is going to come from. It's not so much the government. Anyway, I just thought it was really, really interesting, and. It makes me remember that movie that was on TV about the financial crisis in 2008. I don't remember the name of it, but they did such a good job. And at the end of it, they're just trusting the banks to do the right thing. And there's no, they give the banks, what was it, $700 or $800 billion. And at the end of the movie, I forget who it was. Anyway, the Treasury Secretary looks at whoever else it was. They say, do you think the banks are going to do the right thing? And they both kind of look at each other, and you're going, yeah, sure, the banks are going to do the right thing. And here's what they did with it. They went and they used it to further their goals, and they just keep getting bigger, and we keep bailing them out. So anyway, I don't know why I went off on that tangent, except this article just... I don't know. It was like a slap in the face looking at it on how big these banks are getting and how much they really control things. And I'm not a conspiracy guy. I don't tell people, oh, buy gold because the world's coming apart and the banks are all going to fail. I mean, I don't sell that way. But this article just, I guess I sound like a conspiracy guy with that article, but it really it's real life, and they're letting the guys who control your money also control all the commodities underneath it. So that's kind of scary to me. So speaking of the market, gold is holding in there over $1,180, but not quite over $1,200. The underlying problem for gold is still interest rates rising and a strong dollar. Now, interest rates have not gone up. The Fed has said they're going to raise rates in 2015. It's really just a question of when. I don't think it's really much of a question of if they're going to. I don't know what it would take for them to not raise interest rates. The Fed has said they don't really care about inflation. In fact, they would like more inflation. They don't like the fact that inflation's only 2.6%. That they don't like that because in their mind that the economy isn't growing enough. In my mind, I understand. I took economics, so I understand why you want inflation, but it's just so funny because back in the 70s, late 70s, we were at 30% inflation, and everybody was trying to control it. Once it gets out of control, you can't stop it. And here we are trying to increase inflation. It just times change, I guess, with the years. And so it's not that gold is going down, it's that the dollar is going up. If the dollar goes up, if you're pricing gold in dollars, gold is going to cost less. If you look at gold in other currencies, though, it's not really going down because their currency is going down right along with the gold price. So in other currencies, if you look at it, I should pull it up in euros. I should have done that before the show, but I bet if you look at it in euros, gold's probably going up, not down in euros. If you looked in Japanese yen, gold's probably going up, not down. It's just if you look at it in dollars, it's going down, and it's just because the dollar's strong. How long is it going to last? I have no idea. This morning the yen hit 120 to $1. And I remember when it was 100 to $1 and everybody was freaking out and they couldn't believe it hit 100 to 1. And this morning we're at 120 to 1 and you don't even hear about it. If you tune into some of the financial stations, they talked about it for a minute. They talked about Japan's in a recession. The rest of Europe doesn't look good. They're probably going back into a recession except for England. England's the only one that's doing well over there, but I don't know how long that can last when you're surrounded by countries that are going into recession. It's interesting because in the office the last few weeks I've been walking around telling everyone that it feels just like 1982 to me. I got into the business in 1980, right after gold dropped, right after silver dropped, and it was very interesting to start at probably the worst time in the last 30 years to start in the coin business, but that's just how it worked out. That's when I got out of college. So I was kind of stuck there. And this feels so much like that. Gold has dropped, silver has dropped. You have your hardcore gold bugs are, they're believers no matter what happens. Gold could go to $500 tomorrow and they're still going to believe in gold. And that's fine. That's a good thing. But just because everybody, you have the hardcore people still believe it's going to turn around and go up. You have the general Wall Street crowd saying, see, we told you gold's no good, even though it was good for 12 years. But there's not a lot behind it right now. That is, there's not a lot of positive things to say for gold right now. Most people feel like it's going down from here, not up. That's how it was in 82. And it's really interesting because I went back and I pulled out some charts. And I pulled out the charts from 78 to 82. And if you overlay them over the last 4 years, they match up exactly. It's the exact same chart, the exact same top, the exact same bounces in the chart. If you get a chance online to pull up some charts of gold, look at the chart around 1982 and the few years before it, and then look at the chart today in the last few years. And they're identical. So what does that mean? I guess I'm not sure what that means. But, after 1982, everyone, we felt that gold had bottomed out. Nobody really thought it was going a lot lower. It went for years and years. It ran from $300 and it got up to $500. And it would come back to $400 and it go up to $450 and down to $350. But it was a pretty small, it was a $150, $250 trading range. And it just went back and forth from 82 right up till about 99, really. So that's a long time for it to do nothing. And so I guess what kind of worries me is, are we going to see the same thing again? Is it going to take 20 years for gold to get back up to $1,900? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. If the chart repeats itself, it's going to be a long time before we see $2,000 gold again. So why do I say that? It's not obviously not to sell you gold, because those statements aren't going to make you want to run out and buy gold. But I don't know if it's going to be the same or if it's going to go down to $1,000 and turn around and go right through the roof, or the one thing I do know, the dollar can't stay strong forever. I don't think anybody expects the dollar to buy more 10 years from now than it does today. That's been a steady problem since the paper dollar came into existence. I mean, the dollar buys less and less and less as time goes on. So, it's probably a good time if you aren't in gold and you thought about it for a hedge, just, something to put under your bed in case times get hard. It's probably a good time to buy it. Today we're up at 11, I think it was 1191 when I left the office. So we're over 1180, which was a critical area. Looking at the technical side, you'd say that's a big positive. The Swiss are voting whether they want to back their currency, or not their currency, their debt with gold right now. I don't know if that'll go through or not. But it's holding up pretty good. Everyone thought it was going down to $1,000, and just as everybody thought that was a sure thing, it bounced right back up to $1,200.
Once again, here's Nick Grovich.
Okay, Nick Grovich back with you. I just looked at the markets. Platinum's up $25 today, so something good is going on out there right now. Here's another interesting thing I was talking to somebody about, going back to looking at these charts. So let's say gold does go into a flat market for the next 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. What do you do? What do you do to make money? Maybe you just take your money out and go elsewhere. I don't know too many people that feel, well, I know some people, but they're stockbrokers that feel good about the stock market. Most people I know are scared to death of the market. Maybe it's good until the next election and then it falls. I don't know. I'm not qualified to really even guess on the stock market, except that I know my clients are pretty scared of it right now. So, you have your gold and silver stuck away, you just put it under your bed, you forget about it. And here's the interesting part. If you look at, going back again to the chart from the 80s, early 80s, it was about 6 years after gold dropped that the coin market, the last time the rare coin market did anything, was from 86 to 89. We had a big run up. Now there's a lot of reasons that it went up back then that cannot be repeated today. So don't think that I'm saying, oh, gee, the coin market as a whole is just going to run up 6 years after the gold market drops. But there's a little bit of logic in it, because there's a lot of people, the big money, I'm not talking about all us little guys, but the big money. Sometimes you get bored watching your investment sit there doing nothing year after year after year, and to a degree, I could see that happening in the gold and silver market. It's been 3 years now; it hasn't done anything. I mean, it's gone down. So another 3 years, maybe some of that money gets antsy. It wants to go somewhere else, and the coin market is a logical place for it to go. I know I tell you not to buy rare coins, and for most people, I still say that. But I think it's possible that you might see some pickup in some of the rare coins. But here's the problem. It's not going to be the same thing as the 80s. It's not going to be, it's not going to be Mercury dimes and Walking Liberty halves. It's not going to be the $200 coins going to $1,000. It's not going to be a coin for $1,000 going to $3,000. It's going to be the big coins. It's going to be, I just yesterday bought a 1776 Continental dollar. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but remember the old saying, not worth a Continental? It's because Continental dollars originally were paper, so they weren't really worth anything. And in 1776, it's a silver dollar size coin. Nobody really knows how much they were used, but they did make some. They made some in silver and pewter and copper. They're pretty rare coins. This one's a pewter coin. It's graded by PCGS and MS62, and I bought it yesterday for $85,000. So, you want that coin? I'll sell it to you for $95,000, and it is probably the type of coin. If you really want to put money in coins that have a chance to do something, you can't get a lot more historical than a 1776 Continental dollar. Just think about who might have held a coin like that and the rarity. I think there's 58 coins graded total in all grades. So, it's rare. It's historically significant. That's the kind of coin that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a walking Liberty half dollar that they made 20 million of. I'm not talking about a silver dollar, 1921 Morgan dollar. They made 43 million coins. I'm talking about really rare, significant coins. And now, another thing, if you just want to have fun with coins, there's a lot of fun stuff you can do too. And I think there's more people looking at collecting now simply because it's more affordable. So one thing I'm doing with my clients is I'm offering them kind of as a Christmas thing, and maybe to get kids more involved. And here's how it came up. I used to be a huge commemorative half dollar collector. I mean, I would buy the envelopes they came in, the stamps that came with them, the boxes, everything. And there's times where I pay more for the frame the coin came in than the coin itself. I remember one frame alone from a 1915 coin. I paid $8,000 just for the frame it came in. So, market was pretty wild back then. But here's what's kind of fun about them now. So you look at an Arkansas half dollar. Now these are commemoratives, and they made the Arkansas from 1936. They made it for a few years to 39. Well, back in '89 when the market was hot, this coin in MS65 was a $1,500 coin. That's pretty restrictive to get in there and start putting a collection together. I mean, $1,500 for a fairly common commemorative coin is a lot of money. Well, today that coin, you could buy those for $130, $140. So all of a sudden, it's affordable again for people to buy them. An Oregon Trail. They made those in 1926 and a couple different years all the way up to 1939. It has the wagon train on one side. It has a picture of a Conestoga wagon going across, America. On the obverse of the coin, it has an Indian in full headdress with a hand up, a hand outstretched, kind of stopping the wagon train from going farther west. Again, that coin at the peak of market was $700 in MS65 and $1,500 in MS66. And today you can buy an MS65 for $250 and MS66 for $320. I mean, they seem like good deals. Now, I'm not saying they're good deals, so go out and buy them, you're going to double your money. You're probably not going to lose a whole lot from where they are. I mean, some of these coins you're buying for 10 cents on the dollar. But, for what it costs you to buy one MS65 St. Gaudens, you can buy 10 different commemorative coins and get a little enjoyment out of it if that interests you, and probably not take a big risk with your money. I mean, like I said, the prices on these coins really hasn't changed much in the last 15 years. So the best I can say for them is they're stable right now. I don't know if you're going to make money. I wouldn't get in it to make a bunch of money, but it's something you can have a heck of a lot of fun with. And I guess it's to a degree an investment, although probably not, more of a hedge, I guess. But there's so many coins. The commemorative set, if you look at it coin by coin, what I mean by that, for example, the Arkansas, they made several different years, but if you got one of every kind of commemorative, it's 44 coins. And do you realize you can buy 20 of those coins for, it would average less than $200 a coin in MS65. So you can buy almost half the set for under $200 a coin. I mean, to me, that's pretty incredible, and a lot of these coins have mintages in thousands. When I say in the thousands, I mean some of them are 5,000, 10,000 coins made. Some are 100,000. There's one or two that have 1 million made, but a million coins on any other coin would be considered a rare coin. So there's a lot of things that you can do to have fun in this market, and not spend a lot of money. Here's a whole list. Like I said, there's 10 different coins here. The cheapest is $58. An MS-65 Booker T. Washington with Booker T. Washington, obviously on the obverse. It has a slave cabin on the back, and it says from slave cabin to what does it say? Slave cabin to the Hall of Fame on the reverse. So it's $58. You don't go too far wrong buying an MS-65 for $58. I mean, heck, it's got almost $10 worth of silver in the darn thing. So there's a lot of things you can do. One of the reasons I'm mentioning this is, as I said, a lot of people there were collectors. They're enjoying the coins. Some people asked me to talk a little bit more about coins they could buy without spending a lot of money, coins they can enjoy. So, this is just an area you can get into and maybe enjoy.